The first worst thing about doing a PhD is that you feel stupid because you're now entering the unknown. Like at the beginning of my PhD, I had just come from undergraduate where I felt like I was all over chemistry. I felt like I had passed all the exams, I knew everything there was to know about it, and therefore my PhD would just be like the next leap into just like dominating science. But it wasn't. I was entering the bottom rung of academia after all that work, and I had no idea what was going on. It was not like anything that I had ever done before, and really it took me a while to kind of come to terms with that this wasn't about being book smart, it was about a whole new range of skills that I hadn't really developed and that you develop through baptism by fire throughout your PhD, and that leads to imposter syndrome. It feels sort of like that you're not as good as other people around you in the lab and that they've got it all sorted and that you don't. But trust me, everyone feels this way, even if they don't say it out loud. And it can be particularly challenging for those that have done really well in undergraduate and now they face something completely different and you just feel stupid. So there's the first one, and stay around because this video is all about revealing the things people don't say about a PhD, and it will help you sort of like combat the roller coaster, the ups and downs of a PhD, and let you know what you're in for. Now, I was so fortunate that throughout my PhD, I never really suffered from acute mental health issues. I feel like everyone goes through their ups and downs throughout their PhD, but for some people, it can exacerbate issues that are already there because it is a highly competitive, fast-moving, highly sort of like expectant culture on you as an individual, and it can really sort of like push people over the edge, even if they haven't really suffered from mental health issues before. Now, I find this on The Conversation, and they surveyed over 3,000 PhD students and 1,200 working professionals, and they were looking at, their relative mental health metrics, and it found that 40% of PhD students met the criteria for moderate to severe depression or anxiety, in contrast to the 32% of working professionals. And so that really just tells me that we're really not doing enough to support PhD students. We're often told like this is part of the journey. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But there's a point where it does affect your mental health to the point where it is detrimental to you as a person. And so they also asked PhD students what they thought about their own and their peers' mental health. And more than 40% of PhD students believe that experiencing mental health problem during your PhD is the norm. That's the issue. There is a common belief you have to suffer for the sake of your PhD. If you aren't anxious or suffering from imposter syndrome, then you aren't doing it properly. And that is really part of the culture. It's something we can change just by having better conversations with leaders, with other people, other PhD students in the lab, your supervisors. And, it's not all doom and gloom, which is what they say here. It can be enjoyable and fulfilling. So now we understand a lot more about mental health. So keep talking about it, keep having those conversations, and hopefully together we can get through it. And if you're suffering, remember to go see a professional. The third worst thing about doing a PhD is that there is no definite finish line. Like, it can go on forever. That's just the nature of research. But unfortunately, you do have to kind of wrap your PhD up at some point. And when is that? Is it when you've got 20 graphs? Is it when you can create a little story? Is it when you've got 5 publications? And that is why I think there's a lot of anxiety around like, am I good enough to do this? Because where is the finish line? You just keep going until really you've got enough to fill up a thesis, or your supervisor goes, well, yeah, you should probably start writing up now because you've only got like 6 months or a year left. And it can feel like you're never ever going to get there. Unlike other sort of like more structured degrees, even a medical degree, even a law degree, like you jump through the hoops. Year 1, you're expected to have this done. Year 2, you're going to do these things and these exams. Whereas with a PhD, you kind of jump in at the front and it's like, good luck. Off you go. enjoy, explore the world, and I'll see you in a little bit. And that's really all the direction you're given in the early stages. Sure, your PhD supervisor should be there to guide you in a more kind of like structured way, but that's not always the case. And I think that is kind of, one of the lesser approaches by supervisors. They don't often sort of give you that really sort of hardcore structured approach early on. Often it's just, here's a paper, here's something I've read, here's and let me know what you're doing and what support you need, because they're busy people as well. So not knowing where the finish line is, not having it super structured is completely different to anything we've done before. Another thing is that we rely on getting results to publish our PhD and cross the finish line. Those results aren't always in our control. A successful experiment can sometimes take months to achieve after failure, and that uncertainty around collecting results and publishing can mean that sometimes you feel you've made no progress in months. And how, therefore, are you meant to finish in 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, whatever it is? So just focus on what you can control, and that is doing experiments. Think of experiments to do those experiments, analyze the results, and go through that cycle as often as you can, and reward yourself for going through those things, not necessarily the things you can't control, which is really the success of individual experiments. Try your best, but ultimately there's a little bit of luck involved, but once you find that little opening of luck, you've got to squeeze yourself in there, because that's where the gold is for your PhD. Communicating your PhD to people outside of academia can be a terrible thing as well, because remember, you've now spent or decided to spend all of your time researching this thing that you have actually convinced yourself is very important, and then no one else cares. No one in the outside world really gets it, unless you're in like a health field or something that's, people can grab onto immediately. If you're in sort of a bit more blue sky research or something a bit more obscure, people go, oh yeah, that's nice. Like mine was solar cells. I talked about solar cells, people get it. But you start talking about the minutiae of my experiments and people get that glazed sort of like dumb look where they're just like, and behind their eyes they're thinking, please just stop talking about this. Like, we're at a barbecue, I don't need to know about this. And you're really excited, and that can be one of the most sort of like troubling moments throughout your PhD, or troubling realization, where you realize that it's very important to you and your research group, but it's tough to communicate the importance to someone outside. And it's like, why doesn't the world just not understand how important this is? And so communicating to people outside of academia can be one of the worst things, because it's super important to you, but they don't care. And they just look bored as well. They can't even hide it. One of the last things about your PhD that can be very disappointing is that no one will read your thesis. You will read it, your examiners will read it, your supervisors will read it, hopefully time and time again, to find all the mistakes. But that's really about it. Maybe mine was read by people that were continuing my work, but after 2 or 3 sort of like students down the line, no one's interested in my work. They're interested in the latest thesis, the latest masters, the latest papers. So it can be very sort of like upsetting when you've put all your life into creating something like this, and then no one really wants to know about it. And now it's just like, I don't even really want to know about it now, to be honest. If I open it up and it's kind of a bit boring to read, and I just look at my papers, and it was so important to me, but now it's not important to me anymore, and that's okay. But early on, when you sort of like realizing that no one wants to read it. Like, my parents read the acknowledgement section because they're mentioned into it, and I dedicate this thesis to them. And that's probably the most sort of rewarding people and the part that they could read. But overall, no one cares what's in this anymore, apart from me. And sometimes I use it as a coaster for like cups and stuff. So that's how important it is. Despite all of these things, I would do a PhD again, and oh, the neighbour wanted me to bring her bin in. Easy, I'm a hero. Now, where was I? Despite all of that, I would do a PhD thesis again, but I wish I had known what I know now about the process, about the feelings, about how it happens. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you would add. Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me? Are there things you would add? I would love to read them. And also, there are more ways you can engage with me. First of all, I would go check out academiainsider.com. That's my new project where I've got my ebooks, the Ultimate Academic Writing Toolkit, as well as the PhD Survival Guide. I've got the blogs there, and I've got the forum. It's all growing out, and it's all there to make sure academia works for you. And then I would also head over to andrewstapleton.com.au/newsletter and sign up for my newsletter, where you'll get 5 emails over about 2 weeks, everything from the tools I use, the podcasts I've been on, how to write the perfect abstract, and more. It's exclusive content, only available for free. So go sign up now, and you'll get all of that nice, juicy information into your email inbox. And that's about it. And also, I'm working on some resource packs for graduates to apply for PhD positions. That'll be out soon, so keep your eyes posted on Academia Insider. All right then, I'll see you in the next video.